freedom over fame. Freedom over cycle stays the same.
Unique New York. Okay. No need for the eye roll.
Every time.
It helps me. It's like the starter point, you know? Gurgly, gurgly. All right. Going in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back to the Band Together podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jeanna Macrina.
And I'm your other host, Adri.
Host number 2.
We're still figuring out introductions.
So welcome back, bandits. Thank you so much for joining us again. I want to go into this episode with a big trigger warning before we do anything else, because the book that we're covering today is the children's book, P is for Palestine. It's a really quick read. You know, it takes about 5 minutes. We wanted to basically talk about the really important issues that are going on today. I know that it should be affecting the world, but I know it's affected Adri and I astronomically since it started on October 7th. We have an important and sensitive topic to discuss, and we're going to be diving into the long-standing conflict between Israel and Palestine.
To give a quick overview, P is for Palestine was written by Dr. Goldberg Bashi. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that, but it was released in November of 2017, and it was almost immediately received with backlash. The particular part of the book that was controversial is I is for Intifada, which enraged Jewish and Zionist parents, because for those of you who don't know, this word means shake off in Arabic. However, in Palestinian context, it is understood to mean a civil uprising. And the first Palestinian Intifada erupted in Gaza in December of 1987 after 4 Palestinians were killed when an Israeli truck collided with 2 vans carrying Palestinian workers. As we go into this today, we go in knowing that the subject of Palestine and Israel and the creation of the land of Israel has been covered in controversy, is putting it lightly, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people are calling this biblical. End of times, Jesus coming back. So a lot of people are referencing the Bible with this conflict, but that's how far back it goes.
Right. So just to cover a little bit more about the book before we get into everything fully, we wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. We wanted to highlight books that people can buy, and we'll link more books that are about the Israeli and Palestinian conflict for people to inform themselves. We've done a lot of reading. We've done a lot of consumption of video, audio, really anything that we can think of in the last 4 weeks since everything has started. We actually tried to record this last night. Today is Wednesday, November 8th, and we tried to record this yesterday, and I quite literally could not stop crying because the shit we're seeing is, still can't put into words what I'm trying to say.
It's rancid.
It's for a fight, for a war that is on quote unquote biblical land. This is unfucking godly.
Yeah.
What we're seeing. So the book is in an alphabet format. It's meant for children. And each letter represents a specific aspect of Palestinian culture, history, or daily life. For example,
A is for Arabic.
Right. F is for falafel. Mm-hmm. So the book presents everyday activities, experiences, eating falafels, going to the beach, celebrating holidays, just to illustrate the normalcy of life in Palestine. There are people right now that don't even recognize Palestinians as a nationality or as a country. So that's also part of what makes this book controversial, is even the recognition of Palestine or Palestinians.
It was banned for anti-Semitism. So just for that letter I, it was banned. It pissed people off so much that they had to ban a children's book, which we're going to get down into the details. But as I was reading a little bit more about the book, not just the book itself, it's just giving Palestinians, the little kids, that's giving them pride. And there's been a lot of that stripped away from them. The state of Palestine right now is completely militarized by Israel. They're locked in there. It's commonly referred to as an open air prison. Taking books like this away is basically just, it's reminding me so much. It's reminiscent of, it kind of reminds me of All Boys Aren't Blue.
Why?
Not in a sense of like structure or anything like that, but they're just taking it away because it could mean so much to a group of people.
I feel like that could be almost every book we've covered except for The Handmaid's Tale. I don't think anyone's like clutching onto that.
Yeah. But when it goes in the form of a children's book.
But like The House on Mango Street.
Yeah, it's true. It also, I was about to say, it also reminds me of The House on Mango Street, because that too was a book that was banned for absolutely no reason.
Literally
just
nothing.
To reject passivity.
Right. So I would like to give a disclaimer right now. I won't speak for Jeanna, and she can do this for herself. As I mentioned, I've done as much research as I can over the last few weeks to educate myself. I am 100% imperfect person. I'm going to make mistakes today. I hope that everyone can have grace with me. Seed that planted the creation of this podcast was a frustration and a lack of voice and not really being able to make all the change that I wanted to make in the world, and a love for books. So this episode feels the most important to me, and I'm going to do my absolute best not to cry. But again, I do just want the disclaimer that anything that we say today, I'm saying completely from as much research as I can find with the information in front of me and available to me today. And also, I come from a place of absolute love for all humans to not suffer, hurt, feel pain. So I say that because a lot of the debate that I've been seeing going back and forth is that anyone who calls for the freedom of Palestine, calls for a ceasefire, calls for anything that would help the people of Gaza, immediately they're met with, so you support Hamas, anti-Semitism, you want to kill all Jews. And I cannot stress this enough, 100%, this has nothing to do with Jewish people, their culture,
Nobody wants to see harm to Jews.
No.
Nobody in this podcast is anti-Semitic. Nobody is here going, oh, people, quote, get what they deserve or something of that nature. No, there's no hate speech here against them.
Absolutely nothing of the sort. This is just a very thinly veiled attempt by the Israeli government, by Benjamin Netanyahu, by all the secret powers that be, or all of the governments that are working together to turn a blind eye to the absolute genocide that is happening in Gaza. And that's where my heart is coming from. It's not against the people of Israel. It's not against Jewish people. It's not religious. It's simply a human rights topic to me.
And similarly, I began looking into this, sadly enough, on October 7th. When everything happened. We've both been trying to consume as much as we could to put out the most factual information that we have access to. And I think what Adri means when she says we might say some things wrong, it's because we are just very new. So we're going in asking a lot of questions. And if we miss the mark on something, please feel free to reach out to us. Let us know. I will definitely correct it in future episodes. So we're doing this to the best of our ability. Good to all, harm to none. But let's dig into it. The book was very, like I said, it's a children's book. There's not much to dig into there. We went over those details. We want to process with you the war and the genocide that's going on currently, right now, this day. So we're going to start digging into that.
I guess we can start with a historical overview, right?
I got that.
Yeah.
So we're going to give the briefest of historical backgrounds on this situation. And I say the briefest because it is going to be somewhat long, but this friction it's so old and it keeps reoccurring from what I found out. There's a problem like every 10 years in this area with the same situation. So let's start from the beginning. Before the modern state of Israel was established, The region known as historical Palestine was under Ottoman rule for centuries. World War I comes under British administration as the League of Nations mandate over Palestine. After that time, Jewish immigration to Palestine starts increasing significantly in the late 19th and the early 20th centuries. It's driven by a bunch of different factors, including religious and nationalist motivations. The biggest thing here is the Zionist movement, right? Mm-hmm. So the Zionists, they're extremists, and they sought to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine. And it gained momentum during this period, the early 20th century. The big year, 1947, the United Nations proposed a plan to partition Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states with an international administration for Jerusalem. The plan was accepted by Jews, obviously, because they're coming in and they're like, yay, we get our own spot. And the Arab states and the Palestinian Arabs were like, no, dude, this is us.
Literally our home.
Yeah.
Hi, it's me. Hi.
Hey, it's me.
Here.
We've been here for the longest. What are you doing? So that pops off 1947. 1948, the state of Israel was declared, leading to obviously a war between Israel and neighboring Arab states. So if we're going to start doing conflicts and wars, I'm just going to start naming them off. 1948, Arab and Israeli War, followed by 1956, Suez Crisis, 1967, Six-Day War, 1973, Yom Kippur War. As you can tell by the years, they continue to occur. Palestinians do not want the Israelis there, at least not in that form.
Right.
So the 1967 war resulted in Israel occupying the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip, and the Golan Heights. Many apologies if I'm mispronouncing these. The Palestinian territories of the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, have been the center of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for decades. So this is what we're fighting over. The Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, and later the Palestinian Authority, the PA, emerged as key actors representing Palestinian interests. There's been peace efforts. There's been various peace initiatives that have been attempted over the years, including Oslo Accords in 1993, the Camp David Summit 2000, and the Annapolis Conference in 2007. So I feel terrible for not knowing more about this because this has clearly been a part of world history for so long. And I don't think I'm alone in having American ignorance to what's going on over there. The current situation, we obviously know we're in the middle of war. Benjamin Netanyahu, that motherfucker, is the prime minister. He's not the president, but he's the person that people are meeting with. He's calling the shots, right? We're not saying that Hamas is not a terrorist organization. We understand they come in, they start murdering, raping, just taking motherfuckers out hostage, right? So that all happens on October 7th. That's when all this shit kicks off.
But like allegedly, and this is where I give the disclaimer of maybe not historically correct, maybe not factually correct, but to my knowledge. So to my knowledge and understanding, it goes all the way to the top here. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason that Trump is being indicted is because he had stolen some of our government secrets and was keeping them in the fucking bathroom of Mar-a-Lago in Florida. There is a theory, allegedly for our lawyers, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Allegedly, some of the government secrets that were leaked are because the state of Israel is a fucking militant state. Mm-hmm. Like the land of Israel right now, fucking militant state. So when this happened, when October 7th happened and they like flew in from the sky, everyone was like, how the fuck did they infiltrate Israel? Nothing gets past these motherfuckers.
Yeah, the Iron Dome, right?
Right. And as I've been watching more and more people going in and doing documentaries on Israel, I mean, you literally can't walk down certain streets because they have checkpoints in front of people's houses. And I saw some lady who lived on a street that was not accessible to her as a Palestinian, and she had to scale her roof and go in through a back door to be able to get in and out of her house because she can't walk on the main road. So the fact that there was like a surprise attack on Israel is fucking wild. Allegedly, the theory is that some of the leaked information was either like Israeli weak points, mm-hmm. That's how Hamas got some of this information.
Right. Yeah.
And also Hamas is being funded by a bunch of different governments, and that I haven't looked into. I've been looking more into the Israeli government and Netanyahu specifically. I really have not invested a lot of my time into getting into the nitty gritty of Hamas.
Well, I'll tell you the little bit of information that
You know?
Yeah, I can't even call it information. Hit me with it. I'll call it a conspiracy theory because that's what it is. So the idea is that some of the documents that Trump was stashing, he gave to the Russian government, and the Russian government gave it to Hamas. Hamas then knows the weak points, because it is true, like, we back Israel. They have state-of-the-art military weapons.
Right.
They've got...
But Trump also fucking loved Putin.
Yeah, he fucking slobs Putin's knob whenever he gets a fucking chance. Fuck them both. But yeah, Israel, the Iron Dome, you're not like, you take a shit on the north when the wind's blowing the wrong way, Israel knows. They know everything about you. They know what's going to happen before it happens. Mm-hmm. That's the idea. So that's why this attack was such a fucking shock. Not only the fact that they got attacked in the first place, they didn't see it, and then they got hostages out of it. Mm-hmm. It was a really big deal for them. And now they're fucking blowing the shit apart. And nobody can go anywhere.
Yeah. So yesterday I was really sad. I was crying a lot. I'm telling them, not you. I'm having a moment.
Okay.
Yesterday I was crying a lot, and I was really sad because I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I was watching Instagram videos, and they're pretty graphic of the fucking shit that's happening in Gaza. And I watched like a little girl get dug out of rubble, and she was still alive, and she was like covered in dirt and just bleeding from her nose. And I saw someone, like a dad, like screaming and holding just torso and up of his, like, look like a 4 or 5 year old. So I've seen some shit, and I was really emotional yesterday, and I'm a little more composed today. And in that clarity and composure, I've started to remember, because in the midst of grief, I won't speak for anyone else but myself. In the midst of grief, just kind of only see that. And now that I'm coming out of that fog a little bit, I'm starting to put more and more pieces together and remember things, because I have always paid attention to what is happening around me. I remember when there were protests in Israel for the appointment of Netanyahu as the prime minister, I started to remember all of the controversies. And as I've been remembering and looking it all up, kind of something that I was telling Jeanna right before we started to record was, isn't it fucking funny that he's been attempting a coup? There were strikes after he was appointed as prime minister, and then there's been a lot of controversy because he has attempted to essentially strip Israel or the Israeli government of any kind of semblance of democracy. He's wanted to remove the powers of the Supreme Court, and there were, after that, mass protests for 12 straight weeks, including reservist fighter pilots from Israel's most elite warriors announced that they would not train and protest instead, because everyone was seeing how much of a, let's say, dictatorship type direction he was going. So he's had a lot of opposition, and they've called it a coup. I remember hearing about it. And now, and listen, we're all millennials here. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. But we're millennials in this room, and we went through 9/11, and we saw the effects of what having a splintered government and then having a huge war has always been a uniting factor for any nation. Mm-hmm. So having a prime minister who is facing controversies, who has also been going through corruption charges, he's had, let's see what else, like a laundry list of issues, and suddenly there's this attack on his government that he gets to rally the troops behind and fire everyone up, and now no one's calling for his resignation, and now no one's protesting him, and now everyone's starting to feel safe by him. And how, I'm going to call it convenient, allegedly, this could all be.
Yeah, he's their Trump.
Yeah, he's just smarter.
Yeah, which is terrifying, right?
Right.
He sounds like a human piece of shit.
Yeah.
And that's how I try to avoid mainstream news, but I've been feeling such a disconnect between the news, the information that I'm getting, and some of the information that people that I know are getting, my peers will say, or people of all ages. And there's, such as there has been, like this huge divide of people who are starkly supporting this whole Israel push and the violence and damage that they've done, which, by the way, is over 10,000 Palestinians today. 10,000.
Yeah. In an area that is almost 50% kids
children
under 16. Yeah.
And nobody's going, hey, we'll send special ops in to fuck them up. No.
That's what doesn't fucking make sense.
Yeah.
This is why this is fucking bullshit. I'm not like a colonel or a fucking sergeant who has put together strategies for war, but are you fucking telling me that this elite, well-oiled machine that is the Israeli fucking army can't just go in and pick out their terrorists?
Mm-hmm.
They're instead just gonna blanket. We've heard so I really want to avoid using like the blanket terms like human shields and all that bullshit, because it's just buzzwords. The reality is it makes no fucking sense. Like, just put your critical thinking cap on, and it makes no fucking sense. When everything was happening, I mean, the US, and we're going to get to that. The US is so not perfect, but at least when they were trying to get bin Laden, they were like going into tunnels and shit. I don't know. I was like 20 at the time. I wasn't super paying attention.
Yeah, they were using special ops.
Right.
Like,
How
I
are they
mean,
not
there
doing that
was
shit?
an exchange of obviously missiles fire, things like that. We were over there for a long time. But the way we took them out was special ops, because how the fuck else? We're just going to blanket bomb.
I think it was Rangers, right?
A
No, it
whole
wasn't.
country?
It wasn't Rangers.
No, it wasn't Rangers. Don't.
Cut that. Just
Don't
cut
fuck
it.
that.
Just cut it.
Don't do that. We're going to get murked all over the place.
Yeah, don't fucking do that.
But yeah, like why the fuck, if it was so easy to take out somebody who was so intelligent and running a whole ass operation of terrorism, you think they're just going to be kicking it out in the open, easy to fucking pick off with a missile? No, the fuck they're not. And I understand kind of their logic. They're just like, we're going to keep bombing your fucking shit until you give us what we want, which is hostage negotiation, right? Mm-hmm. But fuck you for fucking bombing children and innocent lives. You can go fucking suck my dick. I can't fucking believe this is happening. Every single day I wake up upset, and I don't have to watch these videos online, but there's been more press individuals murdered in this 4-week conflict than in
the last 30 years.
Than in the last 30 fucking years. And that doesn't tell you where we're at. That's blatantly, you're just seeing videos of press going, when am I next? When am I fucking next? And they're innocent.
And some of the press that we're seeing, I've been following people on Instagram specifically because they're posting a lot on Instagram. I think more so than even on TikTok, which I don't really use Instagram like that. So it's really brought me back. They're young. They're like 23, 24. One of the press people that I follow, he literally posted a video of himself like running through the streets because they were bombing as he's wearing his press vest. I've now seen at this point so many memorials for their fallen colleagues where they'll be like, oh, so-and-so was reporting and he was taken out by a missile that came in and took him and his daughters and his wife and his mother. And it's just overwhelming.
Yeah. I just read that President Biden talked to
I think this is my favorite thing.
Netanyahu.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Watch, I'm saying it wrong.
I read that President Biden spoke to Netanyahu and basically was like, hey, after this is all over, don't chill in Gaza. Because as I said earlier, that there has been friction because of this fucking Gaza Strip. Now let's fucking dig into America, because that's the part that has really fucking chapped my ass. This is all fucking sponsored by us. Mm-hmm. This war brought to you by fucking America.
$14.3 billion.
We're literally funding it monetarily. Mm-hmm. We're fucking emotionally supporting this bullshit.
Right.
We're coddling this bullshit. And all the while, if you're not seeing it on your end of the news, there are protests people coming out around the world by the millions, and that's including the United States of America. The world doesn't fucking want this.
Right.
And President Joe Biden, I do vote left, this guy right now, because President Joe Biden wants to come out and be like, hey, we need a pause. He won't even fucking say ceasefire. He won't utter the word ceasefire because politically we need a strong foothold over there in the Middle East, and that's Israel for us. So he's got to fucking cuddle and kiss motherfucking Netanyahu in the fucking ear every night and let him know, hey, we're still your homies. All the while, kids are dying.
Right, but there was that clip of him that went like super viral, and it's that clip of him saying like, Israel is the best $3 million investment we could make. And if we didn't have Israel, we would have to invent in Israel. And then I was like, well,
when he was a young man.
But he said it again.
Yeah.
Pretty recently, actually. Let me look.
No, it's true. And he'll say it again. And just about every politician for America is going to go ahead and say that because politically and internationally, that's their target. They're thinking of politics, they're thinking of oil, they're thinking of power. They're thinking of fucking money and power while people around them are dying. That's what they're thinking about.
So he said it in 1986, and then he said it again in 2022.
Yeah, it's not a fucking secret.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
No, and it's not. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to.
She's mad at me.
I'm not. It's not at you. It's not at you. I love you.
Yeah, no, and we were also talking about this. Like Jeanna and I were talking about this on our own, but there was that clip of the assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs, John Kirby, who, when he was talking about Ukraine and the war there, he was like literally in tears and choking up. And he was like, I'm sorry. It's just when you see the images of what's happening, like it's awful and we have to help them. And then when they get to fast forward a few months and it's this war that's happening and someone asks about how extensive, because let me be clear, the claim of their having them, and by them, the Israeli government having a right to quote unquote defend itself.
And the Zionists, because not all Israelis and not all Jews are supporting this either.
Right. Actually, not all Jews and not all Israelis are supporting this. Yeah. But this claim of self-defense is literally if someone were to be like, she hit me, so I fucking bombed her.
Yeah. It's that extreme.
I'm not saying that 1,400 Israelis that were murdered and all of the hostages that they have, what is it, like 243 or something, or 234, something like that.
Their lives are valuable too.
Nobody's saying like no one is saying that they're not, but we're talking at this point over 10,000 people that have died, and really
10 times the amount.
And we're really not talking about 10,000 because if you've seen it, you know that there are probably countless bodies underneath that rubble that have not been accounted for. Well, I can't even imagine how the fuck they're getting this number.
The place is already completely controlled, right? Palestinians can't move freely within their own area.
They're in a fucking fishbowl. Like they're in a fucking fishbowl.
If they put walls around LA and then created checkpoints, hey, if you want to go over to downtown LA, you got to go through this checkpoint. You may or may not get past.
It's 1 or 2 streets over. Like,
right. And when you were talking earlier about the woman who couldn't get to her front door, it's because her fucking front door is welded shut because they're that fucking racist.
Yeah.
They're that fucking racist. Now, I know that America can get really dark, but fuck, dude. Welding a fucking door shut because you just don't want to see somebody walking down the street, if that doesn't tell you how fucking bad it is. Now, I'm in general a pretty relaxed person, and I do look at situations, conflict as awakener situations. But in this particular conflict, and I do feel very strongly about racism in all forms and loss of life in all forms, that's just done out of malice and taking rights away from people. Like, I'm just so fucking sick and tired of the people with guns getting to make the decisions. And so right now I'm sitting at home as a fucking American feeling fucking helpless. And please call your congressman. Like, please continue to march. Please keep doing that. Those things do matter and they do make a difference. We are seeing things make a difference. But for the love of fucking God, I'm so fucking sick and tired of people who've got AR fucking 17s getting to decide who goes where and who does what. It shouldn't be the people with the most body armor, the most weapons, the most killing power making decisions. It should be the people that have peace in mind. It should be the people out there pushing for love. It should be the people out there pushing for open communication, pushing for healing. Those are the people that should be in charge. We've got this bullshit upside fucking down, and I'm so fucking frustrated. Sometimes, if America had a face, I would punch it.
Yeah, so something I wanted to bring up is the veto of the U.S. Vote against a ceasefire in the UN. So for anyone who doesn't know, the UN is the United Nations. It's an international organization founded in 1945, made up of 193 member states. And the way it works is everyone gets votes. I'm not 100% sure, but I've been consuming so much information. So I'm sorry. I don't know that this is how it worked, but I know that almost all of the member states voted for a ceasefire kind of early on. And I think the US and one other country voted against it. And because of the US's influence, it vetoed it. So literally the world is against this. I also have read on an article on CBS News that there are protests right now within Israel of people who are fucking tired of it too. And people just aren't getting to see it. I don't understand. I keep saying I don't understand, but I do. I understand the corruption, and I understand the propaganda, and I understand the urge from the powers that be to keep us separate. And by us, I mean the world. Because if the UN vote tells us anything, it's that most people don't think that this is a justified war. This is we're just going to call it is a true genocide of a whole people. They're not recognizing even the nationality of being Palestinian on Palestinian land, on land that was theirs. And the argument of it's their birthright place. I saw someone who literally went on a birthright trip, and now I stand with Palestine because it was brainwashing. They're feeding people this idea that they are entitled to something because the Bible says it. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Stop fucking using the Bible to justify your shitty actions. Because if I know absolutely anything about the Bible, is the purpose of the Bible is supposed to be a word from God that was given to us by his disciples, right? And it's supposed to be the teachings of him. It's supposed to be the story of Jesus, the story of Adam and Eve, whatever book you want to focus on. But ultimately, the Bible is supposed to be the word of God. And this God is supposed to be an all-loving, all-knowing, omnipresent force. And you're telling me that your all-loving, all-knowing, omnipresent God is super cool with you killing 10,000 innocent people for a handful of radical terrorists. I'm sorry. If you are not seeing the disconnect, you have to open your fucking eyes. It's insane to think that people are still using the Bible to justify a full-on Holocaust. We talked about it. I know Jeanna and I have talked about this at length before this ever happened. I've always wondered who I would have been, what I would have done had I been alive during World War II and during Nazi Germany, and watching the extermination of Jews. And the fact that this government is using that as their badge of honor to say any opposition to us is anti-Semitism because of the things that the Jewish people endured. It's an embarrassment. It's a fucking dishonor. It's disgusting that they would use people's legacies, their death, their suffering to justify the death of people today. They're doing the same thing. And I'm not saying Jewish people are doing it. I'm saying the Israeli government. The corrupt government that is the Israeli government, fucking the US and anyone else who's funding this.
And the fucked up part about it is I am completely solemnly affected, but I am not surprised. I'm not surprised in the least. We did the same thing to Hawaii.
Right.
We're doing the same thing currently.
Indians.
We're Mexico,
Slavery.
right? We pluck people from Africa and put them in slavery. We're doing the same thing right now in the fucking Congo.
Right.
And for those of you that don't know, start looking into the Congo, because with the whole push for, and this is not against, obviously we want the environment to be better. We want more electric vehicles, but those electric vehicles take cobalt, right? So they're having people out there just raw dogging it with their whole bodies, no PPE, pulling cobalt out, which is toxic. These people are going to be affected for the rest of their lives. Nobody's fucking telling them because they just want to try to make some money. And they're making shit. So that's what we're doing currently. Puerto Rico did the same motherfucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
So am I fucking surprised that we're supporting this bullshit? No, I'm not. What am I trying to do to stop it? I am sending letters to my congressman. We are marching. We are doing this. This is the best thing that we know how to do, because we're also trying to process it. And if you're trying to process it too, you're not by yourself.
We're really thankful. We're really thankful to have this space to come and process out loud, and to hopefully give a little bit of solace to anyone who's having a hard time processing this as well. I'm sorry that we don't have all the facts, but anyone who's listening to us and has made it this far, at least to some extent, questions their government and questions everything that's happening around us right now. And we want to see reform. I truly believe that nothing has shown me solidarity in the world like this has. As their death was not worth it. Those 10,000 plus people that have died has not been worth this. But in their honor, we get to rally, and in their honor, we get to demand change, not just from our government, but from the governments all around the world. Because even in Israel, people are protesting.
Yeah. Well, if there's anybody in the government that ever gets a hold of this podcast, I want them to know one thing right now. Your days are numbered. It's literally in the stars.
No, not the stars.
Yeah. If we want to get down to it, like energetically, astrologically, the human race is getting to a point where bullying and pushing people around is not what we want to see. We want to see unison. We want to see love. We want to see growth. We want to treat the earth better. We want to treat each other better. And bullshit like this is just making people wake up to the fact that our governments are not fucking supporting our ideals. They're just fucking not. All they give a shit about is money. All they give a shit about is power. And that's where we've landed. So yeah, your fucking days are numbered. This shit's not going to last forever. You're not going to last forever. There's governments in the past, and then there's going to be a reform of governments in the future. And in the next few years, that shit's going to go down. And I can tell you that for a fact, because I'm seeing people coming out by the thousands protesting you over every single fucking decision that you're making, because you're making the wrong decisions. You're not caring about the people. You're not caring about what we care about. You're just caring about your own power. And this bullshit support from the US to Israel is prime example, number fucking one of everything that's fucking wrong with the US government. And we're fucking pissed off.
Yeah. So one of the last things that I really want to do is, given that we have this platform and we're really lucky to have it, but it's like a last call to action. I know you're seeing it all over the place, but one of the things that I wanted to share, because I actually did use this, I saw it on a TikTok, it worked super easy. If you type in jewishvoiceforpeace.org in your browser, it's going to take you to a page where you essentially put your name, your street address, your zip code, your email, your phone number. And what it essentially does is it will hit call me. And I'm going to read this straight off of the website. When you hit call me below, you'll receive a phone call on the number you provided and be patched through to your representative. After you deliver a message, press the star button to be connected to your next representative until you've called all three. If you don't get through, please leave a voicemail. And then they also include a script for exactly what to say. It's literally the most easy thing I've done. It took a total of 5 minutes and 43 seconds for me. No one answered. I left voicemails on all three. It patched me through one by one in order of my representatives. So again, that resource for anyone who wants to do that is jewishvoiceforpeace.org. Additionally, I know we did PS for Palestine, but a couple of books that I've been paying attention to and have started to read maybe two of them just like briefly as everything's been going on is one is The Battle for Justice in Palestine by, I'm gonna butcher their name, Ali Abouni. The second one is by the fantastic, incredible, beautiful Angela Davis. It's Freedom is a Constant Struggle, Palestine and the Foundation of a Movement, and it ties together how the U.S. oppression and the Palestinian oppression are really connected. Right now, Haymarket Books it's an online retailer for books. You don't have to support Amazon, which is awesome. And they're also right now giving 3 free ebooks for anyone who wants to get informed about what's going on in Gaza. One of them is The Light in Gaza. The second is Palestine, A Social Introduction. The last one is Boycotts, Divestments, and Sanctions, The Global Struggle for Palestinian Rights. All of these books right now are completely free for the ebook versions. So there's literally no reason for you not to go out, start learning, start reading, fucking question everything.
Question it. Thanks for listening to us today. I know a lot of it got really emotional, and like Adri said, we made an attempt to record yesterday, but honestly, we just weren't in the right headspace for it.
We love you.
We love you.
You're not in this alone. You're really not.
Reach out to us. We've got a TikTok page. We have a YouTube channel. We're all over the place.
We don't have an Instagram right now, but we might.
I'm not.
I know.
Not a big supporter of Meta at this point in time, but you guys let us know. If we have a lot of pull for Instagram, if that's the best way to communicate, we'll do that too. But I try to avoid Meta. I personally don't have an Instagram or a Facebook. That's not a promotion or whatever. You do whatever you want. But no matter where you are, no matter who you are, we love you.
We love you. We send you the best. And I'm going to leave you with one last little quote that I saw that really, I've literally read it like 6 times a day. It says, it's okay if you feel guilty. It's okay if you feel frustrated. It's okay if you feel sad and angry. It's okay if you're overwhelmed by grief. It's okay if you don't know what else to do. It's okay if it feels like too much right now. It's okay if you don't know what to say anymore.
I love that.
So, love you guys. Be safe. Fight for what you think is right. Fucking question everything.
Let's change the world.
Bye. And that brings us to the end of another episode. If you found this discussion insightful and thought-provoking, don't forget to show your support. You can find all the links and references mentioned in today's episode in the description down below. Whether you're looking for articles, books, or additional resources to explore, we've got you covered.
And if you haven't already, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to us. It's the best way to stay connected and engaged. It gets our books out there into the places where maybe they might not be reachable because they are banned.
And if you're really passionate about what we're doing and you want to take your support to the next level, please consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page.
You'll be gaining access to exclusive bonus content, which I don't post to the regular platforms. And you'll even have the opportunity to vote for the next book that we read and suggestions for topics and future episodes. Thanks again for tuning in to the Band Together podcast. You can follow us on TikTok. Your feedback and involvement make this podcast possible. So keep reading between the lines.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.